So Russia is falling back in Ukraine. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Reiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. Well, you should hear all the complaining and the whining from the pro-Russian bloggers talking about a military disaster in the Donets. Essentially what happened is that the Ukrainian lines and the Russian lines in the eastern part of Ukraine are largely divided by a river called the Donets River. All the bridges on that river have basically been blown up. And so while the Ukrainians have built up strong defenses on their side of the river, the Russians have been desperate to try to find some way to get across it. Now, in most places, this river is both too wide and too deep to ford. As a result of that, what has to happen is the Russians need to build a pontoon bridge. Well, on May 11th, the Russian command sent about 550 troops of the 74th Motorized Rifle Brigade to cross the Donets River at Bilohorivka. I hope I pronounced that correctly. In the eastern Luhansk region. Now, the problem is, in this day and age, of course, it's pretty hard to build a pontoon bridge and cross troops across it without your enemy knowing about it. I mean, the Ukrainians at this point are getting a lot of help with their intelligence from the United States, who have very powerful intelligence capabilities. But you don't even need that. You can see a lot of the stuff just from Google Earth and other publicly available satellite imagery. According to an analysis by the Institute for the Study of War, after these troops had crossed, essentially Ukrainian artillery destroyed the pontoon bridge behind them and then basically lobbed artillery right into the middle of them, killing as many as 485 troops. This might be the biggest military disaster that the Russians have experienced so far in this war. And it's resulted in all the pro-Russian bloggers going crazy, talking about how incompetent their generals are, as if this is finally what it took for them to realize that. As Yuri Podolyaka, a war blogger with 2.1 million followers on Telegram said, "I've been keeping quiet for a long time. The last straw that overwhelmed my patience was the events around Bilohorivka, where due to stupidity, I emphasize, because of the stupidity of the Russian command, at least one battalion tactical group was burned, possibly two." Now, this disaster speaks to exactly what I was describing in a video I did a few days ago, talking about the long-term prospects for the Russians in this war. The truth is, as I see it, time is on the side of the Ukrainians, and the longer this war goes on, the bigger trouble the Russians are going to find themselves in. Repeatedly, they have scaled back their ambitions to now basically just trying to capture a little piece of the Donbass that remains out of the control of the separatist forces. And this is the action that was supposed to help them in that regard. Obviously didn't turn out very well. Speculation is that the generals ordered this attack, which was ill-conceived to be sure, because of the fact that they are getting pressure from above to produce some results. And we all know, of course, what happens to people who disappoint Putin. But this one assault is just a small piece of a wider disaster that's going on. According to British intelligence, the Russians have now lost 1/3 of the forces that they sent into Ukraine. With each day that goes on, especially with operations like this one, the Russians are losing more and more of their forces and more of their material. What's more is that the Ukrainians have shown themselves to be very aggressive in their counteroffensives. Up in the Kharkiv Oblast, they have actually managed to essentially push Russian forces all the way back to the Russian border. According to some reports, even attacking some of the border regions of the Belgorod region of Russia. Now, this offensive is going to allow them to continue to move toward the supply lines that have been supplying as many as 20,000 Russian troops in the area of Izium, as I reported in an earlier video as well. And each step that the Ukrainians are taking in this regard is making it harder and harder for the Russians to continue with any kind of real offensive in the east. This now marks basically the second major battle where the Russians had hoped to essentially take over a Ukrainian population center, where the Russians have had to pull back. The first one, of course, being Kyiv, and now Kharkiv, being the second largest city in Ukraine. Although it's likely the war still has a way to go, unfortunately, it appears that the Ukrainians are actually starting to make some real progress in their effort to push the Russians out of their country. Well, if you want to find out more about the long-term prospects of the war in Ukraine, why don't you check out this video over here? I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.